Hi, let's take a look at an equation that tends to give some students some trouble. Specifically, I think because of the order of operations. So let's solve the equation 7 minus 3 times the quantity negative 6b plus 5, quantity closed, equals negative 3b minus 5. So our first step whenever we see a linear equation with multi-steps is to first simplify each side. So we're going to first simplify each side. We're going to look at the left side and then the right side and see what we can do for it first. So we're going to simplify each side. Now notice on the right side, I have two terms, negative 3b and minus 5. One has a variable, one is a constant, so we can't do anything to those. We can't put them together. However, on the left side, we have some operations going on that we can use and simplify. Let's rewrite that equation. That equation is 7 minus 3 times the quantity negative 6b plus 5, quantity closed, equals negative 3b minus 5. Now, at first glance, I think the most trouble comes in, and students tend to jump right in, and they tend to see 7 minus 3 and they subtract and get 4. Unfortunately, this is not the way that you can solve this equation. That step is what we call illegal in math, and here's why. In math, we have something called the order of operations. I don't know if you remember, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So when you see a problem in math, you don't always start left and work your way right. You have a certain hierarchy or order to which operation gets done first. And in that hierarchy, multiplication precedes addition and subtraction. So specifically, when we go to simplify, we can't subtract before we multiply. In other words, we must first use or apply the distributive property, which is multiplication, okay? So we're first going to apply the distributive property, in other words, multiply. Then we're going to combine like terms, or if you like, add or subtract, okay? So first, we have to apply the distributive property, and second, we need to combine like terms in that order. So we cannot put 7 minus 3 together until we first apply the distributive property. So we're going to erase that fact. We can't do 7 minus 3. Instead, we're first going to apply the distributive property. That is, we're going to take negative 3 and we're going to distribute it through to the two terms inside the parentheses. We're going to multiply if you like. So let's do that. 7 minus 3 times negative 6b is plus 18b. And then negative 3 times plus 5 is minus 15 or negative 15. Equals, and then on the right side we have negative 3b minus 5. Now we can move forward. We continue by combining like terms on the left side. And notice on the left side we have two constants. We have a 7 and we have a negative 15. Those are the ones we want to put together. So that means on the left side we simply have 18b minus 8 equals negative 3b minus 5. All right, so we finished that first step of simplifying each side. Now we're ready to start using our properties of addition and subtraction. We want to get our variable terms together and our constants together. That makes our next step adding and subtracting to both sides. In other words, we're going to apply what we call in math as the addition-subtraction property. So I'm writing these notes on the left side here because these are steps that you follow on every equation, not just this equation. So we're going to use the addition-subtraction property of equality. So after you simplify each side, you want to apply the addition-subtraction property of equality. That is, you want to get your constants together and you want to get your variable terms together. I like to get my constants together first. I like to get my variable terms together first. In other words, I'm going to bring all my variables to the left side. That means I need to move the negative 3b and remove it from the right side And because it's a negative 3b, the way I remove it is I add 3b. I do the opposite operation. And so I'm going to add 3b to both sides. Now, because it's an equation, whatever I do to the one side, I have to do to the other to keep it nice and balanced. And so that gives me actually 21b minus 8 equals negative 5. I'm going to continue adding and subtracting to each side. In other words, applying the addition-subtraction properties of equality. And this time I'm going to get my constants together. That is, the negative 8 and the negative 5 need to be put together. So I'm going to move that negative 8 from the left side by adding 8. And when I do it to the left side, I also must do it to the right side, so I'm going to add 8 to the right side. Doing so gives us 21b equals positive 3. So now we've finished adding and subtracting terms to each side. We have our variable term on the left and our constant on the right. The last step in solving equations then is going to apply the multiplication and division property of equality. So the multiplication and the division property of equality. Again, I'm putting that here on the left as a note because it's the same properties that I follow every time I solve a linear equation. I first simplify, then I apply adding and subtracting, and then I apply multiplying and dividing. So the last step is multiplication and division. So we are going to use the fact that 21 times b is a multiplication. To solve this equation, I want to get b all by itself, right? The job is to get b equal to some number by itself. In order to do that, because the 21 is being multiplied by the b, I'm going to do the opposite operation of multiplication, which is division. I'm going to divide both sides of this equation by 21. Doing so, notice the 21 divided by 21 cancels, and it just gives me 1b, or b. And that's on the left side, but that's given me b by itself. On the right side, I have 3 over 21, and I know that that's a fraction, 3 divided by 21, that actually simplifies down to 1 over 7, because 3 divides into 3 and 3 divides into 21. So that means that the solution to this equation is a fraction. It's simply the fraction 1/7.